Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the KDigitals podcast where we dive into artists, their origin, their style, and their process. Joining me is Stephanie Cabral. How do you say, Stephanie?
Hi, how's it going, Chris?
It's going pretty well. I'm excited to talk with you. I know we were talking just before we recorded, but I have a lot of cool questions to ask you.
Can't wait.
The first question, so every podcast I kick off the same way. I always ask the artists can you define yourself? Right? Because some artists might do multiple things like video or photo or design or model too or whatever. So I always like the artists know, like, how do you identify yourself?
How do I identify? I identify as a music photographer. 99.9% of everything I shoot is music. So I'll say music, still photographer. And I do video as well, and I do other things, but music photographer is my heart. How's that?
Okay.
My heart and soul, what I do mostly.
Yeah. So I have a lot of questions to ask you. So you've been doing this for a long time. We talked about how long you've been around. When did you get started?
You're making me feel old. What the hell?
That was a bad way to phrase the question, but
yes, I'm old.
I meant it more in you have the experience of a professional.
Okay, there you go. Yes, I'm old, but I used to always be the youngest one in the photo pit. Now, for some reason, I'm like twice of everybody's age. So let's see, starting off, I guess I started like most kids do, as photographers do, as a fan. So I would sneak a camera into shows and go to the front row and take photos and I'd hide the camera like in my pants, so security wouldn't catch it, because back then there was no cell phones. So, security was no cameras allowed. And from there, I interned at Rip magazine when I was in college, got my degree in photography, and went straight from graduating to I was hired at Rip magazine as a photo editor in early 90s. So I kind of missed the height of the 80s heyday. So I kind of wish I was 5 or 10 years older than I actually am. So I saw a little bit of, the golden era of metal, but I really am true metalhead by heart.
Yeah.
So that's what I always wanted to shoot. And then from Rip, I just freelanced. So I started actually working at Rip. I interned there in 91, and I think I started working in 93 in the office. So I guess my professional career is almost 30 years long now.
Yeah. What'd you do as an intern?
As an intern, interns are answering phones. I was filing 8x10 photos, because back then there was no email. So we got 8x10 black and white photos of bands, color slides of bands. I did a lot of filing and answering phones, and then kind of progressed to they liked some of the photos I started showing them, because I was a photo major, and they let me shoot for them. So, as a teenager, I got to say, hey, I'm shooting for Rip magazine. So I would just go out to any show I could. And they would hook me up. And then I think the first real, I don't remember what the first photo was I got in Rip, but they ran like a Green Day photo as a cover shot of mine. So I was hooked, and they would pay me on this extra as like a freelance photographer. So before I was even hired as a photo, I eventually got hired on after college as a photo editor there. But before I was photo editor, I was making money on the side as a freelance photographer for them as well.
So when you were going to school for this, was your intention to be a professional music photographer? Or were you just, I like photography, let me just...
Absolutely. So when I was in high school, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. And I was a huge music fan, loved it, but I don't sing and I don't play an instrument. So it was kind of a way for me to be a part of the scene, I'm going to go to a show. Well, I'm going to take a camera. Before I was actually, any kind of pro. And then in high school, I took a photography class, and I was like, that's it. I could never really draw great. I was an okay, at drawing, but I wasn't great. But once I found photography, it was like, I love the dark room. I love processing film. I love I love, developing stuff. I love taking the images and being creative that way and being able to uh, kind of transform what I saw in my head as like a photo art piece into, print.
Yeah. You said Green Day? So how big were they back then? Like when you
I mean, that was like early 90s. So, I think back then they were kind of considered almost metal.
Okay.
Maybe that was just my first cover for Rip. I feel like my first photo for Rip was like my first photo feature for Rip was Flotsam and Jetsam.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure. I don't remember how big they were back then because, to be honest, they're not really my typical shoot. I tend to go more Bay Area thrash metal and heavier. So
Okay.
it was kind of an odd thing. Rip used to put like, they'd have Slayer on the cover, and then the next week it would be Sugar Ray, and then the next time it would be Kiss, and so they kind of had a little bit. It was kind of like Revolver. They did a little bit of everything back then
Yeah.
in
And so
the hard rock genre.
yeah, but yours was focused, like you focus more on metal and specifically like Bay Area.
Uh, yeah, I grew up in the Central Valley, so the Bay Area was kind of the closest place I could go see any of the major shows. So Bay Area metal scene was, what I went to the most. So, Death Angel, Testament, Slayer, or, well, I guess Slayer's technically not Bay Area, but
Mhm.
um, and then later on it became Machine Head and God, so many. Exodus.
Exodus, yeah, that's one of the big Bay Area folks. Um, so because so you went from the intern thing to like, let's say like you're shooting with Suicidal Tendencies and Testament, Overkill and Exodus and Twisted Sister and everyone. Um, because you're so like involved and close to it now, do you still have like favorite bands? Like, is it the same as you?
um, oh, of course, I still have favorite bands, but I think they say, or I heard once that the bands that you loved when you were first discovering music at 13, 14 are the bands you'll love forever, and that still
Mhm.
holds true. I mean,
Okay.
when I was 13, some of the hair metal I don't really listen to so much because when I was 13, I probably had a lot of like I had Motley Crue and Rat, and then I kind of progressed from there to like more heavy and underground stuff. And then I went back and listened to Black Sabbath and Rainbow and more classic artists. And but yeah, still to this day, I mean, if my favorites are Death Angel,
Okay.
I'm a huge Slayer fan, Testament, Sacred Reich, Overkill. I'm going to forget somebody that's a friend and they're going to murder me.
Yeah.
That's the other problem. I can't really play favorites because there are some bands where I adore the band members, but the music style isn't necessarily my favorite. I mean, some
Mm,
bands I'm not a huge death metal fan, but there's lots of death metal bands that like I've shot and I love working with. I
mhm.
mean, to this day, one of my favorite shoots was with Chris Barnes, original singer for Cannibal Corpse, and his band 6 Feet Under, and we had him in the Metal Blade offices like covered in blood, and he was like on this like marble tile in the owner's like private marble covered shower. We got blood on Brian Slagel's shower. But and it's still, it was, but would I ever sit down and put down an early Cannibal Corpse record just to mellow out? Probably not.
Yeah, I never got that with that. I knew a lot of people. I think kind of same. I like thrash a lot growing up, and I knew people that like death, but I could never like get hooked on it like they did. And I felt like I was missing out on something. But even now, I like let me just put some like noise for like candle noise right now. I just death metal just doesn't feel like what I want to do. Like, I feel like when I'm driving, I'll do death metal, but not chilling.
Right. And I love it at a show, but yeah, not and it's weird too for me. I mean, I've shot a lot of different artists, so I
Mhm.
prefer metal. Like right now, like back in the day I shot for Rip and Metal Maniacs and um Metal Edge, and then it progressed to like Revolver. Now my main magazine client is Metal Hammer, but I also shoot for classic rock, prog mag. So there's a lot of different artists that I cover, but still when I go to shoot a band, if they're metal in any form, whether it's, you know, a prog metal band, hair metal band, or a death metal band, it's still family. Like death metal might be a cousin and hair metal might be like a grandma, you know, but they're all still family. I'd much rather do that than a lot of these like pop stars. Actually, I had a lot of fun with a lot of hip hop artists. I feel like hip hop kind of progressed in the same way that metal did. And even though I would never listen to anything hip hop, like I always have a great working relationship with a lot of those artists.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of my questions. Is like, do you do anything outside of the metal?
Absolutely. Whoever pays me. I
Right.
mean, if you look at my website, like it's predominantly a metal, but I throw in like, you know, there's a lot of big artists that I've shot in my day. When they were coming up, even like Adele, Lady Gaga, Tim McGraw, I think I've shot twice. Sheryl Crow. And then as far as hip hop artists, like 50 Cent, I had a great time working with 50 Cent. Snoop Dogg, I've done a couple of shoots with him. I love Snoop Dogg. Trying to think of who else. My memory is horrible, but so yeah. So I have my portfolio is a big variety, but my favorites are definitely more like Bay Area thrash.
Yeah.
Plus Overkill.
Yeah. What's kept you in music and that? Because it sounds like you're also touring like bands do, like all the time. Like
what kept me in music is the love of it. I mean, I could shoot weddings and probably have a much steadier paycheck and a much probably bigger paycheck than shooting metal. But it's the love of it. I love it. So, you know, I've done product shots and different kind of things like that. That's, you know, just for the paycheck, but it's not as fun, you know, working with bands like, you know, Overkill, Sacred Reich, Testament. It's family. So it's fun. Like I enjoy it. How's that?
Yeah.
That's what kept me in metal. I love it.
Yeah. There's never been like a pull of like, you know what, I think I want to just like freshen up my life and go do like fashion photography now. And like that's gonna be my new thing.
No, and I was recently, so I just literally a month ago got scuba certified. And I have always said that in my retirement, maybe I'll go retire to Hawaii and take like pictures of like scuba divers and turtles and octopuses for tourists, you know. But then in my last scuba diving trip, I'm like, oh, it'd be way better to do like people because they'll pay more than somebody would for a turtle. So, you know, I'm still thinking about that, but it's not, that's definitely, underwater photography wouldn't be my like giant love. It's like, it's when I'm too old to carry around all my photo gear to, you know, a concert and to, you know, a studio and to a photo location, then maybe I'll start doing underwater retirement photos. How's that?
Yeah. There was a photo or a highlight or something on your Instagram where I don't know how far you biked, but you biked with 30 pounds of camera gear somewhere.
That sucked. That was for Aftershock last year. I got a last minute assignment from Metal Hammer to cover Aftershock, which is the giant Danny Wimmer festival in Sacramento. And all the hotels are booked. And I didn't want to do, I mean, you know, I'm not going to drive an hour every day for a full day festival. It's a long day. So I took my RV to the campgrounds that were only a couple miles away, 2 or 3 miles away. And I'm like, I ride my bike 15 miles when I ride. So 3 miles is nothing. Wasn't really taken into account having like, you know, 40 pounds of photo gear on my back. And Metallica was playing one of the nights. So I'd actually rented a 600 millimeter lens, which it comes about up to my waist, the case, if I set it on the ground. It's about the size of a carry-on suitcase. So I also kind of forgot about that. So it sucked, but I did it. So I'll do anything to get the shot.
Yeah. Have you ever broken gear like that?
Oh,
yeah.
Not so much carrying it. A lot of times, usually it's in a live situation. I mean, and studio shoots too. Like I was doing a shoot with the band Nevermore from Seattle, and I had all my portable lights out, but because we were on location, I didn't bring any sandbags because they're heavy to carry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we had a guy that was helping out, the assistant that was supposed to be holding the lights to make sure that the wind didn't catch him. And I'm like, make sure you're holding the, oh, I got it. Look down to look at his phone for 2 seconds and the wind,
no.
whoosh, and it was $1,000
Yeah.
lamp just shattered. And I've had that actually happen twice. That happened for the Galactic Cowboys in Austin as well. But a lot of times in the actual photo pit, I've been hit by crowd surfers a number of times.
Oh, yeah.
I've broken, camera mounts or flash mounts. Usually I don't shoot with a flash in the pit. Most of the time it's not allowed anyways. But if I'm doing something backstage and I have my flash on my camera and I have to run back into the photo pit to shoot the band live, it might still be up there, but I'm not using it. And that actually happened one time for a Slayer gig, and a crowd surfer came over, hit my face, and my face hit my camera. And right on, it was at the Palladium, like my face hit the stage, my camera hit the stage, and my face hit my camera, and the flash just broke off the top. And I've actually had done that like twice. It's been a while since I've had anything really bad. I mean, you get people throwing soda cans towards the stage. I got covered in a whole bottle of soda, bottle of beer, or can of beer, whatever, a few times. So yeah, and I've broken the screen on my camera before. What else? Nothing. I mean, I've dropped lenses. I'm usually pretty good. I fell off the stage doing a kill switch engage shoot one time.
Oh, damn.
But I saved the camera. Like it was like about
good job.
I was like, I fell on asphalt and I got all like bloodied, but I'm like, save the camera. So that's usually my first instinct, is to save the camera. But yeah, it happens. And it's also part of the industry that I think a lot of people nowadays don't realize that, your iPhone photo isn't bad. It's not as good ever as a photographer with a real camera is going to be. And so when people are like, oh, I can get free photos, or I can do that, or, hook me up with photos for a photo credit, I'm like, you're not going to hook me up with camera gear for a free photo. So why would I hook you up with free photos for a photo credit? My gear is expensive. If I carry out all my gear, I mean, just what I take to a normal show could be anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 worth of gear. So it's like, I try and be careful. And so like, Aftershock, I was carrying closer to the 30,000 range. So I Ubered it on the way home because I didn't want to risk riding my bike through the park at night. There was a lot of scary homeless people. So I learned my lesson. I Ubered back.
Yeah. I mean, just like the fact that you're like that just sounds like anxiety the whole way, the whole 3 miles.
Well, and not even so much that, but so I live in Los Angeles, and shooting big shows, there's tons of security, and we're actually, as photographers, we're almost segregated. So the photo pit in front of the stage, it's probably 10 feet wide or bigger. We're escorted in by a Live Nation publicist or whoever the promoter is. Or the band's publicist. We're escorted out. And a lot of times, like even at Aftershock, at the show, we're escorted in. We have a media area, so we're fine. So you're not really worried about getting, mugged or, attacked or anything like that. But I do shoot for a lot of, indie metal publications. And if they want a band that's playing downtown LA at the Regent, it's right off of Skid Row. So it's like, well, are you going to pay for my parking out front valet? Like, am I going to have a +1 because I need somebody to come with me because, it's a bad neighborhood. I mean, I love the band Goathort, and I've worked with them a lot. But they played downtown LA the last time they were here, and there was a shooting outside the day I was there. So it's just like, you know. So it's more of that, especially being a female shooting out, by yourself with a lot of expensive gear on, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's scary. Because then, like, and that you have all this gear on you. Like for me, it's just like I'll sometimes just have my backpack, like my regular, and it looks like a regular backpack. But then I started realizing, like, oh, I could be shooting at a park and someone might just watch me and wait till I go back to my car. Right.
Absolutely.
And like,
Yeah.
and
And
that, like, especially in the Bay, right? It's bad.
I've been, yeah, in the Bay Area too. I'm pretty like, if I have so if I'm shooting just live, then I can do just the photo backpack and it's pretty inconspicuous. And I make sure I pack everything up in the backpack. I don't go out on the street with my camera around my neck. That's just screaming, tourists, please rob
You're
me.
one. Yeah.
But a lot of times, especially for magazine shoots, I'm shooting like a quickie photo session. So I'll bring my Pelican case with lights and lighting stands and battery packs. And the Pelican case kind of screams, I got something valuable in there, please rob me.
Yeah.
So when it's that, I'm usually like, can I get somebody to escort me out, whether it's, security, band member, tour manager, something.
Yeah. No, I never thought about that. That's crazy. Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes a lot
I
of
mean,
sense.
you just got to be. It's LA. You got to be careful of everything. I mean, when I shoot in clubs, if I go from the band's dressing room to the stage, and they're like, "Oh, you can leave your stuff here," I still will lock my case up and I'll lock it to a door, a chair, something in the dressing room with like a bicycle chain, because I've seen so many clubs that they're like, "Where's my guitars?" The guitars walk away and nobody knows what happens to them. So I try not to be a victim. Knock on wood.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds bad, but I get it. Right.
All right, let's not be bummer. Let's talk about photography.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, that was a good conversation, the right to have, but yeah, that's hard left out of it. So because you mainly shoot bands and music and particularly metal, right? After like doing it for as long as you have, how do you kind of keep it fresh? Like, how do you get new types of photos where, especially with the same subject, like you're gonna shoot a band live, they're playing. How do you get something different?
Very good question. And that's the biggest trick, is trying to get something different, especially if you're shooting live. When you have in LA, a big show could be 30 photographers in the pit. Usually it's closer to 20, but I've been to like Ozfest or Not Fest where there was 80 photographers approved for the day. 80. So how are you going to make your photos different? So because I'm old and been doing this a long time and I have a good relationship with a lot of bands, managers, publicists, I always go for the big ask. Hey, can I get stage access? Can I get backstage access? Can I shoot, from the stage so I can see the crowd? Can I shoot the whole set? That kind of thing. And then while I'm shooting live, it's the lead singer comes to the edge of the stage and there's all 20 photographers are right around him. I'm like, well, why am I going to fight them when nobody's shooting the guitar player at that moment? So that's usually when I'll go off and I'll shoot the other guys in the band. And if somebody comes to the edge of the stage, I'm not usually trying to get a close-up shot of them. I try and get the behind them, so now I can see the crowd, even if I don't have that stage access. Because a lot of festivals and stuff, an artist like Ice-T will jump out on the front subwoofers. So if you can get a shot from behind him where he's on the subwoofer and in the photo pit and you can see the crowd, it's a great different shot. Butcher Babies, they always come out in the front. And so because I'm a girl, I don't feel as pervy as like I feel when I look at the guy photographer. Well, when a guy photographer sees a girl in like a bikini, they go straight for the crotch. It's like, come on, dude, you're so thirsty.
Simple.
But
yeah.
I do it a lot of times because they'll stand across and they'll like lean over and it might be a silhouette shot, but it's a great like wide angle shot with the crowd behind them. To incorporate both, because it does get boring. How many stage shots can you see, especially now when everybody has a cell phone camera and they can take their own live shots, and they may not be as crystal clear as mine, but everybody's scrolling through their feed of the Iron Maiden show last night. So what's going to set my photos apart from the other 100 people on my Facebook friend list?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's crazy. 80 photographers. Like, yeah, how do you, at that point, if you're getting 80 photographers, why don't they just hire, like, can everyone hire the same photographer? Or like, do they hire you exclusively for like their publication?
Usually it's exclusively for their publication. most of the time. There have been a few occasions where like there are publishers that own multiple magazines. So for example, Guitar World and Revolver had the same publisher. So for the big four in New York, where it was Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, I shot for Guitar World and Revolver. And it was a way that they could use stuff for both magazines and have, you know, one photographer, because the big four only allowed 20 photographers because it was Yankee Stadium. So the stadium itself wouldn't let more than that. But most of the time, every publication wants their own photos so they can be exclusive. So, you know, it's, and even though we're going to get close, I mean, I have lots of photographer friends that, you know, we've all been doing it a similar amount of time, same show, and somebody will be like, how'd you get that shot? And somebody else is like, oh, I didn't even see that. So we'll all get, and we all get FOMO too, like where we fear missing out, like, wait, how did I miss that? How did you get that?
Yeah. What's been like a favorite photo of yours recently?
Ooh, recently, I would have to look. I'm trying to think of what I've shot recently. Let's see. I went to Finland and I shot this little festival there that In Flames headlined, and it was, I guess it's summer, but it doesn't get freaking dark in the northern part of Finland this time of year. And as a Californian, I've never experienced it bright daylight at midnight. So the sun started, it kind of looked like a weird, not sunset, it almost looked like sunrise. It was like a bluish sky. And the guitar player for In Flames, Bjorn, turned around and he kind of like posed for me. And just with the smoke on the stage and the way the light hit him and the background sky, even though it was midnight, it's definitely one of my favorite shots, and really loved him. I think I put that on my Instagram, I don't know, probably about a month ago. But again, that's access, you know, asking them, hey, is it okay if I shoot you from the stage? You know, I always ask the drummers for every band too, can I come up, is, you know, if it's okay, you know, that's the only way I can get a really cool drum shot. And you know, a lot of times the drummer's like, no one ever asks.
Yeah, and I hear that like, I feel like that's a recurring thing with like drummers. But also, like, how do you get a good drum shot? Because I feel like when I do, I can never. It always feels the same box photo. I don't know.
Well, and that's like, I was having that conversation with Dave Lombardo. He just recently joined Testament, so I was out doing a photo shoot with him for Testament. And he was like, yeah, you know, for live photos, no one ever really gets, and I'm like, yeah, your drum set's huge. He's not a big guy. So from the angle of the photo pit, when you're looking up to the back, at best, you might see somebody's little tiny head peeking through between a drum and a cymbal. And, you know, unless it's a really low drum set and it's somebody like tall and skinny, like Tommy Lee, that's going to stand up with drumsticks, it's really hard getting a decent photo of a drummer on a big stage. Like Nico from Iron Maiden, I can never see him. I try every little, his drums are just so big you can't see him. And it's like, you might be able to from the back of the arena or from up high, but we're not allowed to shoot from there. Like, we're really, photographers for music are given the first 3 songs of a band set in front of the stage, and then we're escorted out most of the time. You know, if you get special permission, like for certain bands, you know, like for example, In Flames, I was shooting the whole set. I could go wherever I wanted and I was on the stage. But 90% of everything that everyone shoots is first 3 songs only from the front of the house, and then bye-bye. They're not even, most of the time, you're not even supposed to take a photo. Like if you go back to your seat with your camera, you're not supposed to take a wide angle shot of the stage and the crowd. That's a no-no. You get in trouble.
Huh. So why is it only first 3 songs? I feel like a lot would happen later in the set.
Oh, absolutely. But so it started, I believe this rule started, you know, more in the 70s, 80s. Number one, bands start to sweat and look horrible at the end of the set. Towards the beginning of the set, everybody looks better and fresh. And then number two, there were some bands that don't want to spoil it. So if it's Alice Cooper or Kiss or any band with theatrics, Rammstein, they don't want to give away that surprise element. So, Gene Simmons always did the, spit blood, but he did it towards the end of the set or middle of the set, never in the first three songs. But what they do, I don't know if they still do this. It's been a while since I've shot Kiss, but what Kiss did is, when I shot them before, they would allow photographers first two songs and last two songs. So you would get a good variety, and they would give you like the confetti at the end, and they touch up and everything in between sets. So they didn't seem, but yeah. So I believe those are the two reasons. Band looks like crap. And I just had a guitar player friend who on stage was like this, like done. And after the show, I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I thought, I had a laminate. I thought I was cool for the whole shoot. He's like, I just was looking like shit. So I was done by, he's like halfway through the set. He's like, I let you stay longer than everybody else, but I figured by that point I looked like crap. Like, all right.
Huh. I never thought about that. That would be a thing.
Yep.
Huh.
Everybody's vain. Everybody's vain. Doesn't matter how thin, fat, old, young, everybody's vain.
I think the more you do photography, you pick up on that. Like, no matter what, there's always something to edit. Everyone's insecure about something, and it might be something you're like, I still don't see what you're seeing, but okay. But that's just being human.
And everybody has different weird things. Like, some people it's like, oh, make sure you don't get the bags under my eyes. And other people it's, the muffin top. And then other people are like, I'm fat, I don't care, and then it's other things like, oh, make sure I'm not bald though. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's everybody has their insecurity. So I always tell everybody like, hey, if you don't like, especially when we're doing a session, if you don't like the shots, you can always delete them. Let's try this, let's try that. And then, it's if you have anything that you're insecure about, you want to make sure I fix later, let me know. And I've had people pull me to the side and was like, hey, can you make sure that, you don't see this or this? And I was like, no problem. I mean, I've reshot a band. Like I did a photo shoot. I don't want to tell the band's name because then it's going to out the singer, but I did a shoot with a band and I showed it to the singer. And I was like, what do you think? He's like, it's all right. I'm like, well, what don't you like? He's like, everybody looks good. The photo's great. I don't like me. He's like, I think I'm better on the other side. And I'm like, well, then let's redo it. Everything's still set up. We did a half an hour in this one little setup. I'm like, let's redo it. So we got the whole band back. And then it was like, okay, he's like, that I like. So it's, and I'd much rather get the shot than spend hours in photoshopping.
Yeah. Cause you realize like, this is gonna take another 10 minutes. But then if you do that, that'll save you like 5 hours.
Exactly. And when I was in school, Photoshop it didn't exist. So I got an AA in photojournalism and a BA in art photography, and it didn't exist. So I always learned to shoot on slide film and to do it in the camera. And like one of my biggest like compliments was I was doing a photo shoot with Arch Enemy at the Wiltern in Los Angeles, and I had colored gels on my lights and I was doing all this, and I had like a little star thing, and Mike Mott was looking at the photos and he's like, wow. He's like, that looks great in the camera. He's like, everybody else does all the photoshopping afterwards. And I'm like, well, I'd rather, they always say you can't polish a turd, but that's what I think a lot of people that rely so heavily on Photoshop are. It's like you're taking a cell phone photo and you're just polishing up that turd, but I'd rather make it as good as I can be in the camera.
Yeah, no, for sure. So one advice, I think I told you before we started, right? Is like, I was trying to do band photography and kind of get into that. The model thing kind of just, for me, just kind of became a thing. But here and there, I still try to work with bands. But I feel like I have the hardest time organizing them.
Herding cats, we say.
So is that actually a thing? Like in the actual?
Oh my gosh, yes. Herding cats. It's my favorite line. Like tour managers use it all the time because for bands you have to herd cats. So yes, if the band's older and more established and they're paying the bills, they're usually, more prompt and more together. If it's like backstage and you're trying to organize different things at a show, it's definitely harder. But yeah, herding cats. And then, you have the guys that just don't show up on time and stuff like that, or they get distracted. Oh, I'm just going to go outside and smoke a cigarette. So the whole band's waiting for one guy. So I'm the one that has to like, I'll go get him. There's a lot of that.
So it's kind of happened to me, but not really, where people have not showed up on time. But in your profession, I feel like that's it sounds like that's just like a cliche old school thing. What do you do? Do you ever just like, well, I'm leaving. We had me for an hour, or
Well, and like I said, most of the bands I work with now are pretty professional.
yeah.
I'm going to out him because I did post it on Facebook anyways, and it's not
Okay.
that big of a deal. But so Mike Portnoy asked me to do a photo shoot with his son's band. I was like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. They're all young at the time. I mean, they were probably 19, 20, 21, 22. And it was during the NAMM show convention, which is, people don't know, it's a giant music convention in LA, like hundreds of thousands of people.
Mhm.
So I had rented a studio, paying studio time by the minute in Anaheim. And I'm there and they're supposed to show up, and 10 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by. I'm texting them, where are you? Not hearing from them. Finally, after an hour, I'm posting selfies on my Facebook page. Like, this is what it's like when you're at a photo studio and the band's still not here after an hour. And I get a text from Mike Portnoy. He's like, please tell me that's not my kid. I'm all, it is. I'm all, it's okay, because Mike was paying the bill. So it's
okay.
And in their defense, they were actually, I think the band, well, I don't think they've changed their name, but it was Tala. And they were super creative and super fun and super energetic. And they had great photos come out of our session. But there was an hour of my time and the studio time that Mike Portnoy had to pay for because his kid didn't show up on time. But I know for a fact, if it was me shooting Mike in the studio, he would have been late. So that kind of thing. It's not, I don't get angry. I'm just like, they're
paid.
paying. Yeah. So most of the time it's like,
yeah.
I feel bad because I want a band. It's funny because I say artists referring to musicians and you called me an artist, but when I say artists, I usually mean musicians.
Yeah.
I want them to get their money's worth when I get hired. So that's my biggest goal. If it's small band, big band, I want to make sure, like, if you have me for the day, I want to work that day and I want you to get everything you can out of me. So if they're late, or if we can't find a location, that kind of thing, or if the band wants to like sit around, smoke weed and drink beer, I'm like, no, you guys are paying for me, right? Like, we should be working. So that's kind of my feeling. Like, I'd always rather give the label, the manager, the band, the most photos, the biggest bang for the buck. How's that? I want to work for my.
Yeah, that's funny. I still can't get over the fact, like, herding cats. Like, I feel like at the
Definitely
day,
herding cats.
That's a skill for you to, but it's cool. Like, at the day, so that's what the reason I asked some questions, because like it feels like there's a lot of like, I don't know if you call it like stress or frustration or what it is, but like a lot of that friction maybe along the way. And but for you, just kind of bulldoze right through it. And like, I'm getting paid. We're gonna get the shot no matter what.
Exactly. I mean, I remember the Herding Cats a long time ago. The band Nevermore. They, I don't know if you know who they are, Seattle band, but I did a lot of work with them forever ago. And I basically got hired because the label was like, they're impossible. They're like herding cats. Like, it was like you'd grab one and then the other one would go off. Jeff Loomis from Arch Enemy was in the band at the time, and he could tell you. But they were all drinking really heavily at the time, and it was like, oh, we're gonna go over here and talk to this girl. Oh, I'm over here. Well, he's over there smoking a cigarette. I'm gonna have a beer. And I literally kept getting hired by the label because they're like, we can't deal with them. They're like herding cats. And so I'm like, shut up, do it.
Yeah, that's cool. So with all that, so I want to kind of hard left again. I'm curious. I like asking this question. What are your top 5 albums?
Top 5 albums. Gotta make me think about that kind of stuff. I always say Death Angel, Act 3, because I adore them. It's gonna all be like 80s stuff. I would say Testament, Practice What You Preach. Let's see what else. I'm like, I have to go look at see what I'm like listening to right now. I got all my vinyl out on the floor behind me. It's funny is I love Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, but I didn't become a fan until I was older, which is kind of funny. So I would say Stay Hungry is one of my favorite records. More because I met Dee in the 90s and I just like adored him. Like we started talking about music and again, it's that like family connection. Like, he was an older, almost maybe even considered a hair metal kind of guy, but he definitely, I mean, he had taste in music that was coming up at the time, but when he was talking to me about bands like Seven Dust on their first record and God, I don't even know, Typo Negative and just, so it made me like him and go back and like, all right, these are fun records. I mean, I love In Flames, Clayman. What else? God, I could be lame and say like Master of Puppets, but who doesn't love that record?
I mean, it's okay to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I love lots of stuff, but a lot of 80s stuff. I mean, more I was gonna say more contemporary. I like bands like Lamb of God, but they're 25 years old at this point, so they're not really a new band anymore.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like new metal? Not like NU, but like NEW.
NEW. No, I love hearing somebody new that I like. I listen to Sirius XM, Liquid Metal religiously. So when I discover somebody new, like, oh my God, this is The Horrible Memory. It's the band from Australia. They kind of sound like Faith No More, and I can't think of the name of it. And I love them, and we play them all the time. Yeah, I wish I had a better memory. Ginger, I love Ginger. They were amazing. Upon a Burning Body, I did a shoot with them and love them. I mean, again, I'm not a huge death metal fan, but I love Goatwhore. Goatwhore puts on like a great show. I've always loved them, and I don't know if they're typical death metal. There's not so much the Cookie Monster like Old School Cannibal or anything. I don't know. Did I name 5? I probably named more than 5.
I feel like I got Death Angel, Stay Hungry.
Death Angel, Twisted Sister. I need to go look at my office, see what's hanging on the wall.
Yeah,
I have all my like prized possessions.
Yeah, like you were saying, like in the beginning. Let me shut the door real quick.
Go for it.
My daughter, she doesn't like her diaper being changed. She's
Oh,
at that
no.
phase. So when you're trying to change it, she like will wrestle the whole way, but the diaper has been changed yet. So it's like you're trying to control it where there's gonna be a mess, and it's just like it's fun.
I'm gonna go back old school, like Judas Priest, British Steel.
Gave you some time to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like the first Slipknot record was great.
That's a good album.
They got Lamb of God. God, what else? I'm trying to think of what I just recently bought on vinyl too. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, Pantera. Oh my God, how could I forget Pantera? Mm-hmm. So Cowboys from Hell was like great breakout, record. I feel like it saved the 90s.
Yeah, it seems like they were not thrash, right? But because they're in that vein somewhat, like shreddy, they kind of reignited a flame that was disappearing.
Absolutely. And I feel like, 10 years later, that's what Lamb of God did. Lamb of God now is like the new generations, like Pantera, like they're heavy, but they're not death metal, but they're amazing live. I mean, Randy is one of the best frontmen in the business. Oh, speaking of John Bush is also one of the best frontmen ever. He's also a friend, but singer for Armored Saint and former singer for Anthrax. Like, love him, love shooting him. Done a lot of work with Armored Saint, and the bass player Joey Vera, he's a longtime friend, and love working with him, like collaboratively. Like all the Armored Saint records that I've worked with, it's like Joey comes up with these crazy ideas, and it's fun to figure out, well, how are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool that you still like are into it, right? Like, okay, there's some people that I just recently interviewed where like they were doing it for maybe a few years, and at one point there's like, I'm just burnt out of traveling all the time and working all the time. Like, I like photography, but the like rock star lifestyle behind for it's just hard to keep up with, right? And you're just like endurance.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I don't know if I'd want to be a touring musician as like my profession, because it's way harder than people think, no sleep. And, when you do sleep, you're on a bus, and you got to trust that the tour manager or the bus driver isn't going to crash in the middle of the night. And, it's just like, oh, it just
Yeah.
seems so tiring. You don't have a real toilet, you don't have a real shower, it's like, oh, it's not very glamorous. But to do it for 2 or 3 days, it's like, woohoo, vacation, this is fun. It's like camp. So
Yeah.
if I'm going out with a band for 3 days, or going somewhere for, a festival, like I can suffer for 3 days, and then I come home and want to sleep for 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't, like, there's again, there are people that are musicians. They said, yeah, like I always wanted this career. And then when I finally got it, I was like, oh, I didn't know this was part of the job. I'm out.
Right. Right.
Which now that I'm older, I get, like, yeah, that's gotta wear on you when you're not 19.
Absolutely.
So for all the bands you've worked with, is there anyone you haven't worked with yet that you're like, oh, I still need to get that shot?
Oh, I'm sure.
Every box been checked off already.
No, I mean, and every time I shoot somebody new, I was like, oh, that was so, great. Shooting live, I've pretty much shot everybody I could ever want to shoot. I don't think there's anybody live I haven't shot, but there's definitely sessions that, people have. So lots of bands have their preferred photographer, or somebody they've worked with for 20, 30 years, so there's no way to really crack in there, but there's a lot of like, I would love to do a shoot with like Rob Halford in the studio, like Ozzy in the studio, and then like more so, I guess, the classic artists, because the new artists are great. I mean, like, I've done some stuff with Randy, and he's great because he also is a photographer, so he likes to see how it works. But yeah, I guess just those. I would say Rob Halford and Ozzy Osbourne would be the two of my top to be in the studio. Like, I've done little things with both of them here and there, event kind of stuff, and Golden Gods, and Ozzy's management hired me to shoot Ozzy. Like, they were doing like a press conference thing where he was throwing money out to the crowd at this event. So different stuff like that. I mean, I was lucky enough to like be able to shoot Ozzy at the last Ozfest that was pre-COVID, and he gave me a thumbs up in the photo pit. And I was like, Ozzy gave me a thumbs up.
I got that shot.
And I got that shot. I mean, it's little stuff like that I'm still like a little kid, like,
yeah,
look who I got. Or, even like we were talking about Testament, when I shot Testament last, and Chuck Billy sees me, and I'm side stage. I'm not, or in the photo pit, he thinks he's funny, and he's like throwing guitar picks at me. I'm like, Chuck Billy threw a guitar pick at me.
Yeah. That's cool. Cause you said these are like bands you liked, and then now you're, like you said, a family with them. Like, that's really cool that you built that.
I mean, everybody loves positive attention, right? And so if I'm a photographer that's like, oh my God, I've been a fan of yours forever, come on, I got to do a photo shoot for Metal Hammer with you, then they're already like, Steph's cool, and she works for a good magazine, and she's been doing this forever, and she still loves our band. So, and then it makes me feel good, It's like, so it's that family. So that's why I could never leave metal. Love it.
Yeah, it's your community, right?
Yeah,
Dude,
absolutely.
I know a lot of metal like covers are like artwork, but do you have any covers? Like, have you shot any?
A few. So let's see. Well, I did Armored Saint, Win Hands Down, and La Raza. I did both of their covers. One was we were downtown LA and we did like a full panel shoot of the band, like walking down the street in different areas of the street. And that, oh, and then we had like pigeons that I was shooting. So I think they ended up using the pigeons for the album cover, and then the inside fold was them. And then the Win Hands Down was Joey Vera's idea again. They were like kind of this sci-fi band that was in a old saloon, and the table lit up. So I built a table that lit up. So it actually, when I hit my flash strobe, the table would flashlight underneath them. So it kind of gave that like glowing look.
Oh.
So that was really fun and challenging. And then the place where we filmed it at was like an old Western town in LA that unfortunately burnt down with some of the wildfires a couple of years ago.
Mm.
So that shoot memorialized that. Then I did the last Lizzie Borden album. It was just like his face. They like digitized their graphic artist at Metal Blade digitized his face and made it into I don't know, more neon looking. But yeah, that was a, hey, we need to shoot, you know, there's no real band, it's just the singer. So we like did it in his kitchen with just like a white backdrop, you know. A lot of times cool. I end up doing it's amazing what you can do like in a tiny space. I did Galder from Demo Burger one time for his solo album in a hotel room, and we like set up lights and did it in the bathroom, like on the bathroom counter. Him and I are sitting in the bathroom counter and I'm shooting his reflection, and the shots came out killer. But you know, I pride myself on trying to be able to look around and make the atmosphere work.
Yeah, that's, I always liked that because there was a like a photojournalist I shadowed one time, and same thing. It feels like you have a different set of problem solving that you have to do for some reason in that kind of area, because you don't know what you're going to be with, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, lately it's probably half of my session shoots are more that way. I mean, you still get some people that want location. But if you're in a studio, the problem with studios is, you know, plain black or gray background. I think it's kind of boring. So either you build some sort of background set, or you get a studio that has some sort of set, or you find a place on location. So a lot of times it's, hey, the band's doing a music video, but we also need you to do a photo shoot during the music video. Like the last one of those I did, I believe, was this band Fallujah, young band
from Bay.
And yeah. And they're stuck in a black room filming their music video all day. And somehow I got to figure out how to make, you know, a full day's band shoot while they're filming a video. And it's just a black room. So I think I posted that, hey, I did these 3 shots in the same location. And one was, you know, I had a light behind them with a fog machine. Another one, I had like a red light and I had them kind of blurred motion. And then we did another one we did outside, like kind of sunset with the clouds and lit them up, just to kind of give a variety. So I've worked for record labels too, so I know what they need, and I've worked for magazines, so I know what they need. So getting a variety of photos and making sure you get, you know, the shot with the guy with the guitar for Guitar World and the guitar magazines, you know, you have to think ahead, like, okay, I'm going to do singles of this band because they're known for changing out members. So then that way we can piece them all together. For example, the last Testament publicity photo, I had already shot singles of everybody in Testament, and Gene Hoglan couldn't tour with them, so they got Dave Lombardo to join with them. So I just went out and shot Dave to match the singles of everybody else in Testament, and then we just did a composite photo. So I try and think ahead to stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really, I would never thought of that. I would have thought we should have to reshoot the whole thing, but with him.
Well, and we did at the House of Blues it was probably in San Diego. Oh, maybe it was Anaheim. I don't remember, but we did another little quick photo shoot backstage as well. But, yeah, you know, backstage at a House of Blues, you know, concrete walls and stuff. So it's tight quarters. So it's hard to get some sort of variety into there, but
Yeah. No, for sure. So I do have to wrap it up. I know I told you 23 minutes. Thank you for staying for an hour. I didn't realize
it's
I
all good.
ran that clock. Well, so to wrap it up, so you're clearly a professional and have experience. Um, After all this time, what's some advice you could give to a more newer creative that's trying to get their engine going?
To doing music photography or
Yeah, it's music photography because I feel like you'll give a really unique perspective because that's what you know.
I mean, I don't think much has changed since when I started. It's go out and shoot as much as you can, any band. The only difference is now it's cheap. It costs nothing to shoot on digital. When I was, 17, 18, 19, trying to get my start, a roll of slide film, to buy the roll of film and to have it processed was close to $30. And a 19-year-old college kid, I did not have enough money. So I would go and shoot, say Sacred Reich at the Whiskey because I freaking love Sacred Reich, but I could only shoot one roll of film because I couldn't afford more than the $30 for that roll of film. So when I go through my archives, I'm like, man, why didn't I shoot more than, 15 shots of this band? Oh yeah, it would have cost a ton for me back then. But so now there's lots of places where you shoot your friends' bands, go shoot any like unsigned band, and they're always happy to get, promotion. Everybody needs content, right? I mean, even now, if I don't have a magazine assignment and I don't have an assignment, but I still want to go shoot my friends, then I'll go do it and I'll just give them, social media photos and just chalk it up to part of their bill for their session shoots. I mean, there's plenty of bands that have given me lots of work where if they ask me to come see the show, I'm like, oh, I'll just bring my camera anyways, I have a hard time going to a show without a camera.
Yeah, what would you do? Watch the show?
It's weird. Yeah, it's very weird. I feel like, and then I start taking out my phone and I'm like, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just shoot everybody you can. The more you do it, the better you get. It's everything. They say 10,000 hours makes you a pro. So, get your 10,000 hours under your belt.
For sure. Well, Stephanie, thank you for joining me for this hour-long interview. I really appreciate it.
Sorry it was so long. I told you, I warned you I'm a talker.
I'm okay with that. It's content.
All right.
Where can people follow your work and learn more about you?
All right. Well, my website is actually fairly updated and it's stephaniecabral.com. I'm on Instagram as Stephanie D. Cabral, and that's where I post mostly. Stephanie Cabral photos on Facebook. How's that?
It works.
I post mostly to Instagram.
That's the place to do it.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna go and stop the recording. Thank you everyone for tuning in today, and I'll see you all later. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.